You know what I'm sick of? I'm sick of America bashing. I'm really sick and tired of listening to people bashing America on a constant basis. You know, I came to this country, I was very young. It was 1980. I was a kid. I was basically a kid. I got off the plane in Miami. I had nothing. I had absolutely nothing. I had a little suitcase and a couple of bucks my father gave me. When I say a couple of bucks, I mean maybe I had $50 when I got off the plane. And I had an uncle in St. Augustine, Florida, and I went there to work for him. I think my starting pay, I don't remember actually what it was, but it wasn't much. It might have been, I don't know, it might have been $10 an hour or $5 an hour. I have to look that up. I'll get back to you on that, but it wasn't that much. I know minimum wage at that time, I want to say it was about $4 an hour. So I might have been making a little more than that. But from the time I came here, I remember I was working. I was always taught as a kid to listen to older people, you know, because that's where you got your wisdom back then. There was no internet. You couldn't just Google something or search or look for something on Reddit. You learned from the people that went ahead of you, before you. And I remember even back then, older guys and women, they would tell me, you know, don't ever depend on the government. The government is not going to take care of you. Whatever you do not depend on the government. You need to save your money. You need to invest your money. You need to forget about the fact that, you know, when you get old, somebody is going to take care of you, or the government is going to take care of you. Your Social Security will not take care of you. It may not even be there when you get old. And if it is, it will be worthless to you. These are the things I was taught as a very, very young man. And I never forgot them. And I remember even when I was later on, when I was in my 20s, and, you know, I opened my first business when I was 28 years old. And I remember back then even thinking of Social Security as something you would have at some point in your life that would pay for some stupid incidental thing. You know, like, you know, if you played golf once a week, or if you, whatever you did. I never factored it in as part of my retirement. But this is what people don't realize. I am bombarded now with people telling me how bad America is and how they don't have health insurance. You know, Social Security sucks. I don't get paid enough. You know, blah, 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 blah. Everything is too expensive. And the funny part is they think that back when I was young, that people were living high on the hog on Social Security. They make it sound like, well, you could retire back then and you could live on Social Security. You could never live on Social Security. And you could never live on minimum wage. That has never been a thing in the United States. Minimum wage was a job you got when you were, you know, living at home, or when you were living with family or something. Minimum wage was never designed to pay your bills. And Social Security was never designed as a whole living expense or living income for your life. Everybody knew back then that unless you prepared for retirement, or you prepared for having a family, or you prepared for buying a car or buying a house, that you had to save your money. And you could never outspend yourself. So here's the difference though. Here's the reason we were better off back then. It's not because of the money. It's because of the way we lived. You see, back then, there were very few people that had a car payment. Only really, really successful, wealthy people had car payments back then. That wasn't a thing. It wasn't an option to have a car payment. And a mortgage payment At that time, the rule with the mortgage payment was it could not be more than 25% of your monthly income. So the rule was you didn't spend more than 25% on your home. And you washed your own car. There was no cable TV even back then. You had what we called rabbit ears. There were no subscriptions. There was no Netflix. There was nothing like that. You didn't make payments to anything, right? Now, was that good or bad? I don't know. I'll argue that it was probably good. But now, fast forward to today, right? And people, let's talk about the 40-year-old back then, right? The 40-year-old lived, as I said, right? They had the rabbit ears. They had a small house that they could live in. Very few had a car payment. Nobody had subscriptions. Nobody had that stuff. Fast forward to today, you were basically bullshitted into believing that you could borrow $200,000, go to college, you would get out of college, you were guaranteed when you got out of college that you would get some really, really good job that would allow you to live in a house that most people couldn't afford, to own a car that most people couldn't afford, to be able to have the opportunity to DoorDash and to have a million different subscriptions to Netflix and this Flix and that Flix and all kinds of stuff. And you didn't have to wash your own car. Don't worry about that. You just go to the car wash, or you get a monthly deal, right? And you don't have to go out and just run or ride a bike or whatever. You can just join a gym. Now, you don't want to join the $10 a month Planet Fitness gym. No. You need to have your own gym. You need to pay like $100 a month or $150 a month. But, because you're a college graduate, you can actually have a personal trainer. You can pay somebody to show you how to work out. You can even pay somebody to show you how you're supposed to eat. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff because you're going to have so much money. And your life is going to be perfect. Well, here's the stupid part of the story. If you would just apply even 25% of the attitude from, let's say, the 80s or the 70s to your current life today, you would be living really, really, really well. And you would be able to afford to live really, 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 really well. But no, you see, you think you're entitled to all these things. These things that you can't afford. But remember the part about you can never trust the government and you can never depend on the government? And don't ever depend on the government? That's the same government, by the way, that bullshitted you into believing that $200,000 college education was going to give you some fantastic job. Now, while you were doing all this, and while you're sitting there like a whiny little bitch, bitching about the fact that you're struggling, immigrants were coming to this country with nothing. But you know what they had? They had a hunger because they could see it. They could see that, well, wait a second, I can make all this money, and as long as I don't spend it over here like a buffoon, I can really, really get ahead. And you know what? Instead of me buying a $50,000 car that I can't afford, I'll just buy a $5,000 car over here on this side. And when I have $50,000 saved, then I'll buy a $50,000 car. But I won't. You know why? Because I'll realize that I worked so hard for that money that when I can finally afford the $50,000 car, I will realize at that moment that the day I purchased the $50,000 car, as soon as I drive it off the lot, it's worth $40,000. So why would I pay $50,000 for something that's worth $40,000? So you know what I'll do? I'll buy a 4-year-old used car. or maybe a 5-year-old used car. It's still pretty new. In fact, if I get it with low mileage, maybe I'll get it for $30,000. And you know what I'll do? I'll pay cash for it. I'll pay cash because I'm smart enough to know that I saved the cash. And I really would like to live in a big house. I really would. I'd love to. I'd love to live in that neighborhood over there in the $700,000 house. And I can do that. I can buy that $700 house. That's not a problem. 700 grand, no problem. I mean, my credit score is 780 or 740 or 730. But I have great credit. So the banks love me because they're going to make a ton of money on me because I'm going to buy a house that I don't need for a price that's way too much. And as long as I have my, $200,000 college education, I don't have to worry about a thing. But I'm not going to do that because I'm an immigrant, see? Because I understand I don't need that house. I don't need a house that big. In fact, I don't even need a house that new. Because I can go over here and I can buy this $500,000 house in a neighborhood that's really working class. That kind of suits me anyway because I'm a working class kind of person. I like being around working class people. So I'll just buy that house, and you know what I'll do? That house is pretty shabby looking. Certainly shabby on the outside, definitely shabby on the inside. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to work hard and I'm going to get my friends involved. And maybe I have a friend who can do tile, and I'm just a landscaper. But maybe he'll do some tile and I'll do some landscaping for him. And his house will have a beautiful manicured lawn, and then my house will have beautiful tile. And we'll build that together. And I don't have to go on Angie's list or some other thing and get 3 different quotes from people who, as soon as they pull in the driveway and they see me in the $750,000 house, they realize that I can pay twice as much as the last guy they went to visit, who was the immigrant. I'm tired of you whining. And I know there are people struggling. We're not talking about those people. We're not talking about the people who have health issues. We're not talking about the people who have lost a job through no fault of their own. I'm talking about the people who just want to whine and bitch and bash America. And then they say, well, America sucks, so I'll just go somewhere else. Let me explain something to you. I came from somewhere else. When I left Ireland in 1980, there was nothing there. There was no future there. I was either going to be a construction worker or I was going to stay on the family farm. I chose to leave. And many, many people after me chose to leave. 1980, Ireland was miserable. It was a miserable place. It was filled with misery. There was nothing. There was no future. And my peers there were like, get out. You need to get the hell out of here. If you have a chance to go to America, get the hell out of here and go to America. So I did. And many people followed me. In the 80s, in fact, there was an influx of Irish people that came into America. And then fast forward, they started this thing called the IDA, which was the Irish Development Authority. And they came to places like America. And they cozied up to the politicians and cozied up to the business leaders. And they said, listen, we're going to give you a really big discount on taxes if you come over to our country and open up your factories. And they did. The American companies went to Ireland. The American companies are there to this day. You have Facebook, you have Intel, you have Pfizer, you have IBM, you have, you name it, all the drug companies. You had Oxford Insurance was a big one back then. You see, because when insurance business was done during the day in America, they could process all that paperwork overnight in Ireland. So basically the companies were operating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, worldwide. So now the people over there look at America and call us idiots. And how dare you bully us around, and how dare you tell us what to do, and how dare your ignorant president come over here and tell us that we have to pay more money. It's so funny. You're rooting for America to fail. You're rooting for the hand that feeds you to fail. And I've got news for you. Americans and Europeans. Americans are sitting here saying, I'll just go to another country. And Europeans are saying, Jesus, America, you're so greedy. How dare you? Let me tell you something. If things go sideways, those American companies will leave you in a heartbeat. They will drop ship, pack up, and they will move their asses back on American soil. And at that point, you have nothing. You have nothing. You are done. And you're back to where it was in 1980. And you'll be scrambling to find somewhere to go. But be careful where you go, because there's not going to be much there if America has already pulled out. I mean, you need to wake to hell up and understand that we are in a battle right now for the future of the world, not the future of America. This is the future of the world. We either get this right or we get it wrong. If we get it wrong and America fails, the whole world has completely changed at that point. And if you believe in your mind that the guy here currently in the United States, if you believe that he's an asshole, you're going to be sorry you said that. Because what's coming after him, if none of this works out, is not going to be pretty. Wake up. Study your history. America is still the greatest country in the world. And I feel very, very fortunate to be here. I love my homeland. I love Ireland. It's where I'm from. It's who I am. But everything I have, including the friends and the relationships, everything I have was given to me by America. And if you're watching this, and if you're bashing America, you need to educate yourself. Or as we say in Ireland, cop on to yourself.